One of the prevailing questions around the Chicago Bulls is who on this roster stays, who goes, and how open are the Bulls to really moving a lot of their roster to maintain that top 10 draft pick that's protected to the San Antonio Spurs this year. Well, if you're looking to listen to Jake L. Fisher, Chicago Bulls are taking calls on a lot of Bulls players. We're going to talk about what that could mean and more right after this.
You are now tuned in to Chicago Bulls Central, your number one place for all Chicago Bulls news and content.
What's going on, Bulls fans? Welcome to another episode of Chicago Bulls Central, your number one spot for everything Chicago Bulls related. I'm the host here, Haize, but more importantly, you guys can follow the channel at Bulls Central Pod on every social media platform we happen to be on. With that said, let's go ahead and get into this content for today, y'all. And we got news coming out of Jake L. Fisher in regards to the Chicago Bulls. Again, as I say with all of this at every point in time, take everything with a huge grain of salt when it comes to any rumors about the Chicago Bulls coming from any reported insider. But I'm going to read this directly. This comes from Jake L. Fisher saying this. No surprise that the Bulls executives, according to league sources, have been messaging to rival front office that they are willing to discuss the majority of their roster in trade talks leading into the February 6th trade deadline. Most notably, sources say Chicago has expressed desire to move LaVine, Vucevic, and Ball, who collectively command nearly $85 million in salary this season. Arturas is trying to drive up attention for all of his guys. He's smart, said one league figure known of the Chicago Bulls, thinking the fact that they were willing to move DeMar Caruso, they're willing to move anybody now. So take that for what you will, right? LaVine, Vooch, and Lonzo Ball, these are names that we've been hearing dating back to the offseason. If you remember correctly, during the offseason, even before Lonzo Ball was fully cleared to play basketball, we heard that the Chicago Bulls, for the first time, had been willing to include Lonzo Ball in any big trade if salaries were needed to make things work. The fact that the Bulls are looking to move on from Nikola Vucevic and Zach LaVine are potentially isn't a surprise. These goes back to things that we've heard about this team really for the last few months when it comes down to it. But then the added part that they're taking calls on basically the majority of their roster could point to what a lot of Bulls fans have been calling and asking for in regards to the team moving everybody. If it meant keeping their top 10 pick and doubling down on trying to rebuild with one of the top tier talents in this upcoming draft. Now, again, I'm saying take it all with a grain of salt. We'll see how it ends up shaking out. It may not end up working that way. But if the Bulls, it seems like the priority here, though, is Vooch, Zach, and Lonzo. And I know that's not going to be what a lot of Bulls fans want to hear, right? And I understand it. I'm not saying that it's necessarily the right thing. But if it is the case when it comes down to it, I mean, it is the Bulls removing $85 million of salary. It will very much, like a lot of Bulls fans have said about this franchise before, feel like a cost-saving move. Keep in mind that the Bulls are able to move off those guys' salary. While LaVine was under contract, the Bulls are already slated next season to have $57 million in cap space. If you do not take back the full salary of Zach LaVine, you can have upwards of 80, right, million, maybe something like that. Vooch has one more year left on his deal as well. If you're able to move off Vooch's salary and not take the full salary back, you're looking at another 10, maybe $12 million. And then maybe the Bulls are at the point now where they're maybe trying to work out or prepare for some of the extensions that may need to come, but also the fact of, hey, if we're not going to be a team that can compete, if we're not going to be a team anyway that can make a play-in or that can win a first-round series, why are we having a salary that's this high? I'm not saying that I agree with it. I'm just adding some rationale to what could be going on here with the Chicago Bulls team. And so it's something that we got to watch for and monitor and see what this team does. The front office could very well do what they did at their first trade deadline. Remember, when AK came in here and Mark Eversley came in here, what did they do at that first trade deadline? They, similar to what we heard this year, we heard that the Bulls wanted to give this team 35 games before they started making decisions on moving and trading players. What did this front office do their first year? They waited until about mid-season. They moved Chandler Hutchinson. They moved Wendell Carter. They moved Daniel Gafford, right? They moved a lot of these pieces away from this team. And while that team was looking to add veteran talent, this team could be looking to move on from veterans to add more future assets and cap flexibility. So we could see the inverse of what this front office did when they first came into Chicago, and kind of more so get back to what they said they wanted to do when they took over the job here in Chicago. That's build organically through the draft, get younger, and develop over time. So this could be a course correction back to what they said their original goals were for this Chicago Bulls franchise. And if that's the case, it's not too surprising that they may want to get back to something like that. And we just got to see if they're going to be able to execute on it and how well they're going to be able to get it done. And so it's something to watch. It's something to monitor. Something to look out for. The Bulls sit right now at 8-12. They're 10th in the Eastern Conference right now, but they have one of the worst point differentials in the game of basketball. You got Zach LaVine averaging 21 points per game, 4.7 rebounds, 4.3 assists. Shooting the ball really well and giving his best defensive season. He's locked in for a few years. Vooch is having one of his best seasons in the Chicago Bulls uniform as well. So this could be the time when you have Modest Bucilis, you have Kobe White, you have Ayo Dosunmu, you have even maybe if they're with Josh Giddey, right? I know that's going to trigger some people, right? You have already a roster where you embrace youth a little bit more. And if the Bulls really want to embrace that youth going forward, it could come via moving a lot of the pieces on this roster. And we'll see what that means for this team. But let's get in and see how you guys are feeling about it. We got Jordan says, "What up, Haize? What's going on, Jordan? Glad to have you in the building." Marco says, Pat Will got to go. And listen, I keep telling you guys, this front office is really attached to P. Will. I would be surprised if P. Will moves on. I would be surprised with that one. JK, about time, 2 years too late. I mean, hey, I definitely can feel you on that one. Zane, what up, Haize? What's going on, Zane? Glad to have you in here. Zach is so nice, but he low-key got to be traded. I mean, at this point, with what the Bulls' focus may be, everybody can get it, is what it may be. Is Ball back? I mean, Lonzo played in the last game, Andre. So, yeah, he's back, brother. If true, I just hope that they can bring in players that can play defense. Well, keep in mind, King, if they do this move, it's not about winning basketball games right now. And that's the thing that people got to wrap their heads around. They're not making moves to all of a sudden win more games now. These moves that the Bulls would potentially be making is not to win now. It's to maintain assets, lessen salary, and getting better opportunities at drafting what they think could be the Bulls' next star. So honestly, that's probably the furthest thing from the Bulls' mind right now, is looking to add a bunch of defense to solidify this team to be a better defensive team, to thus then probably win more basketball games, is probably what it's coming down to. But we'll see what happens there. We'll see. I want to keep Kobe, Ayo, and Booz, maybe even Dalen Terry. The rest I'm okay with seeing being moved. A lot of people will agree with you on that one, Danko. A lot of people would agree with you on that one. Curtis, if you're trying to give Zach and Vooch a chance to go with a contender, I understand. However, they have been our best two players. Yeah, and our best two players have us at 8-12 on the season, right? With a point differential that is that of a 22-win team. So I get it. They've been playing great, but it's not like them playing great has really led the Bulls to being this powerhouse. And I'm not blaming them on that, right? Roster construction sucks, right? Lack of rim protection sucks. Lack of depth at the big man position sucks. So I'm not blaming Zach and Vooch for where we are, but you got to come to the realization that with them playing, right? And that's a wake-up call. With us playing at the way that we are, it's not going to necessarily get you, we're not really going far. Watch Zach all of a sudden get hurt because this news dropped. That's if he wants to stay. I'll actually believe if it happens. Jacob Fisher loves to make a lot of crap for clicks. I don't disagree with you at all there, Winton. Vooch and LaVine to the Lakers. You're not getting Dalton Connect. You're not getting Dalton Connect. You got to wake up. If the Lakers are looking to add Zach, they're looking to win now. They're not looking to move on from Connect. They're not. Take this with a grain of salt, because this franchise is known for saying a lot of shit but doing another. Well, I mean, this didn't come from the franchise, though, Shay. I'm just ready to move from this team. Hey, a lot of people feel that way, Corn. Don't be surprised if Kobe White or Ayo is part of this. That would be a little surprising. But, I mean, we'll see what has to happen here. No, you dumbasses, please don't think Patrick Williams is part of this, because I know that's what everybody... Listen, Shay, stop. You ain't always got to have an opposition, bro. Lakers fans already trying to claim Vooch and saying, let's get a young defensive guard out of the Bulls, too. They will have Javon Carter, and they will take... Listen, yeah, take Javon Carter. Take Javon Carter. We need small forward of center of in center. What? Nigga, what? That sentence makes no sense. Brother, huh? Uh. Brother, on the English language. Get it together, man. Hey, it's nice drip, my dude. If we're going to trade guys, get something that'll help the team in the short-term future. That may not be how they're looking, bro. They may be looking towards a long-term future. That's all I'm saying. Like, I understand where you're going from, where you're coming from there, but that may not be where this team is focused at right now. That's all I'm saying. Now, I'm not saying that they're not. They very well could be, but I'm just saying that they may not be. That's what we need: small forward, power forward, and center. So we need 3 out of the 5 positions there. Yeah, yeah. Curtis Brown. I didn't even see what Curtis said. Do you have a realistic handful of players from certain teams for Bulls? No, because I don't know what the see. This is the thing, right? And this is why I don't like getting into the weeds of like trade, speculation, because we don't know. Like, it'll be different if the Bulls are like looking to make trades to help us win more games now. If the focus is the draft, there are no targets. The targets are the assets, not necessarily the players, right? So it's a different way to look at it. Like, if the Bulls were more so buyers than sellers, then it would make more sense to have specific player targets. But if you're sellers, it's not necessarily about you targeting a specific player. It's about you targeting assets. And that's the harder thing to kind of predict and grasp in a situation like this, right? I'm done with short term. We need to think long term. Short term hasn't gotten us anywhere the last 2 years. I can understand where you're coming from there. Completely understand where you're coming from there. I don't trust the front office to accomplish long-term goals. I mean, see, this is why I fucking hate. Why did my camera just go out? I don't trust the front office to accomplish long-term goals. All right, yeah, but here's the thing: they've done nothing in the short term either. So, I mean, hey, maybe we can get in on other trades as a third or fourth team. It's a possibility, but see, that's the thing though. Usually if you get on trades on the third or fourth team, that means you're acquiring bad salary back, right? Which is like what the Spurs did for us. That's why they got the first round pick in Harrison Barnes, right? They acquired the salary that the Bulls couldn't. We're not really in that position either, quite frankly. But I mean, we're like, you can make it work. The Chicago Bulls need to take some tips from Ryan Post and get rid of dead weight, which is your head coach, and see what your team could be in the future. Nah, I mean, listen, the roster's got some dead weight on it too, bro. The roster got some things that don't match. They got some things that don't fit. They got some things that aren't on the same timeline. I'm not a Billy Donovan guy. You already know. I could care less. You could fire Billy Bubblegum Donovan tomorrow. You're not going to hear any complaints out of me. I'm just saying, though, that it doesn't necessarily fix everything right away. How is the Bulls front office any better than the Bears? I mean, the Bears are considerably better than the Bears actually have drafted well. The Bears actually don't have bad money. The Bears have actually given out some pretty reasonable contracts outside of Nate Davis, and the Bears have shown a better ability to pivot off their mistakes than what the Chicago Bulls have done. But the Bulls front office hasn't done everything bad either. So it is what it is. No, Kobe hasn't been at, like, maybe the last couple of games, but on the season, no, Kobe hasn't been asked. That's just not factual. We have to stockpile on picks like OKC did and build. See, everybody goes to like OKC. The difference is that OKC in consecutive years moved Russell Westbrook, Kevin Durant. They then turned around and moved Chris Paul. They moved Paul George. They moved legitimate stars and got back a lot of draft picks and struck while the value was high. It's not just as easy to do what OKC did. They didn't just stockpile picks because they had some good players. They moved stars and stockpile picks that way. So it's not that easy. It's not that easy. The roster doesn't make sense in relation to what the front office is saying. They aren't tanking, but the roster is basically a tank roster. This isn't a competition for a title, so what gives? It's not about, like, listen, there are people who think this isn't just about titles. That's not the only thing that you can do to be competitive. Now, this isn't a tanking roster either. No roster with Zach LaVine, Nikola Vucevic, even what Kobe White can do as a 20-point per game scorer when he's focused, that's not a tanking roster. Now, the Portland Trailblazers, that's a tanking roster. A roster that has some young talent, but nothing fits on that roster, and they don't believe in any of it. That's a tanking roster. The Bulls don't have a tanking roster. They just have a bad team. And that's a little bit different than a tanking roster, at least in my opinion. Who do you think is excluded from the majority of the roster? Modest Bucilis? Maybe Io DeSumo, maybe, and that's not. I would love to say Kobe White and Io DeSumo aren't, but I could see AK and Eversley doing something stupid. Honestly, if I'm looking at the, and if you're asking me this from the perspective of the Bulls front office, the only players that I could see them absolutely saying are untouchable is Modest Bucilis. I could see them saying that. I could see them saying that still, maybe Patrick, because this is just AK has a blind spot for his guys, right? I'm just saying that, and I'm not saying that's the way it should be. I'm just saying that with the way I see this team, I don't know, man. I don't know. People giving OKC all the credit, like Boston Celtics didn't do the same thing back in the early 2010s before they got Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown. Do anybody remember the Nets trade? They absolutely racked up on that Nets. Matter of fact, the pieces that they got from that Nets trade turned into Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown. So yeah. You just said something key. OKC moved players that were hot. We wait for our assets to have no value. Even if we move everyone, realistically, we would get pennies. You're 100% right. That's why I say things like, you're not just going to get back all of a sudden what they got back. You're not going to get that. I'll take Zion Williamson. First of all, listen, Corn, you get so caught up in some of the weeds sometimes. Taking Zion is like, do you want to relive what we just went through with Lonzo all over again and Zach LaVine? Is that what you want to do? You want to put the Bulls perpetually in being the bottom because we are the person that we could build around isn't ever on the court? Like, could you imagine what Zion Williamson would do with access to Portillo's day in and day out? Could you imagine what that's going to look like? Just stay here with me for a minute. Can you imagine what that will look like? Come on, man. Come on. No, Kobe got to go. We need a consistent shooter, not a guy who's hot for 3 games then cold for 3. That's a role player. No, that's not a role player, and that's stupidity. And it's not like, and Kobe had 3 games, and before that, he was playing good for the whole month. So that's just not factual at all either. Now, he is an inconsistent player, but there are a lot of stars that are inconsistent as well. Jason Tatum has been inconsistent offensively for the majority of his career. This is the most consistent Jason Tatum has been. So let's not act like inconsistencies stop you from the impact that you're having. The fact of the matter is, you're not just going to move on from Kobe and all of a sudden find somebody who's guaranteed to do that either. You're not. That's just not realistic. You're not playing 2KG money. Get value on guys is like stocks. Buy low, sell high. That's a fact, especially if you can't build around them, right? I come from the Jordan era, spoiled me. Watching the team go dry like the Dallas Cowboys is frustrating as fuck. Win or nothing, that's my mindset. At least give us hope. The team is hopeless, no future. No, that's not true. That's just stupid mindset. I'm sorry, and I don't mean to come at you, Dave, but this whole thing when people say, I come from the Jordan mindset and this, yeah, you realize you had the best player of a generation. And if you get so caught up in that, that's stupid if you think that you're gonna have that all the time. You're just not. That doesn't make any sense. That's not sustainable for anybody. That doesn't make any sense. Patillo's, Uncle Remus, White Castle, Harold Chicken. Bro, listen, Zion, people talked about Zion having a neck this off. He's not going to have a chin or shoulders. It's just going to be all one row. All one row. That's the thing. We're not trading for a young star player with star potential. That's not what these trades will get you. Now, maybe you get lucky and you get a young asset back that then you give some money, some time to develop and they hit and they develop, but you're not necessarily looking at that. Are there any playoff teams with cap to absorb ball to absorb? No, not outright. There are some teams with some cap that can take a large part of their salary, but not completely absorb it all the way. No, there's not a lot of teams that can do that. The Bulls look like they're tanking, but they're not. They're losing games, but unlike the prior years, they lose while being substantially more competitive. This is all they are still bad, but fun bad. Facts. Here's the thing, and I said this before. If AK is some mastermind, he built this good. You got a fun offense and no defense. It's hard to win games with no defense. And this is why people focus so much on offense. Is like the Bulls are a perfect example of why good offense really doesn't win you shit, right? Now, if you have a great and elite, the best offense, then yeah, that gives you something. But if you just have a good offense, it don't get you shit. It don't get you shit. You got to have some defense to get it done. You got to have some defense to get it done. So that's what you're gonna say. That's what you're gonna say. But all right, y'all. I wanted to bring this news once I saw it, man. Thank you guys. You know, we're the number one spot for everything Chicago Bulls related. I've been in the studio for basically the last 2 hours. So I'm getting out of here. I'll see you guys during the game. I love you guys. Go Bulls, man. You already know what it means. Make sure you guys are following the show at Bulls Central Pod. You can send us any feedback, questions, comments, concerns. bullcentralpod@gmail.com. Lastly, if you want to leave a text message and our voicemail for the mailbag, the number to do so, 773-270-2799. We're the number one spot for everything Chicago Bulls related, and I'll see you guys later.